Alright, so this video is going to be about the readiness scale, fatigue, and end of week check-ins, and a little bit of an explanation of how those work with the program generally. So, for every day that you lift, you should be filling out all three of the squat, bench, and deadlift readiness scales. Now, if you don't have a workout to compare your readiness to, let's say for example we come to a day like here, we only have close grip bench. There's no squatting or deadlifting on this day. We still want you to fill this in, but instead of specifically a readiness level for what the workout is, since there is no workout, simply put in how fatigued you are for that day. And so you should be altering these red numbers here every single week. We can start, we'll jump in here. If you end up using a 1, you'll see that right here it didn't have a back off weight yet to adjust, but it increased the number of sets that are going to be used if fatigue is very low. It's also going to impact what the back off percentages are, and I'll get to that in a moment. The same thing is going to be happening here for bench. Additionally, you have injury recovery protocols and injured now settings. So you can see here when I put in injured now, it removes this exercise here. And conversely, if I put in rehab week 2, it starts giving some rehab protocols. And so you'll also notice some other changes showed up. There was a secondary exercise that shows up down here. So you may actually gain some exercises when you start using rehab protocols. So that's something to note as you go through and are using the system. Again, you should be doing that every day for all three lifts because the average of those helps the system know if you're in the right place with your MEV and MRV, and the relationship between MEV and MRV as you move through a cycle and are reporting your performances also will impact what periodization styles you're going to be using. In addition to this, there's an end of week check-in that's going to be used. And so as you use these, you can see the questions will be different depending on if it's a hypertrophy or a strength, but one is always going to be very low fatigue. You know, the week felt very good. And in a hypertrophy, you would like to add as many sets as possible. Or in strength, you would like to maintain the sets that you were currently doing earlier in the block. A 5, on the other hand, would be for hypertrophy, don't add any sets, even if MEV and MRV dictate that there should be sets added. And also, a 5 in a strength block or a peaking block would be remove as many sets as possible while still keeping me above minimum effective volume. This is important because not all lifters are created equal. Some people may have very low minimum effective volumes in comparison to their maximum recoverable volumes. This means that week to week in a hypertrophy block they should be adding a good number of sets each week, or in strength blocks they should be removing a high number of sets per week. Other lifters, however, might have MEV and MRV that are much closer to each other and are only going to add, 1 or 2 or maybe 0 sets as they move between weeks. The furthest example of that being someone who adds 0 to 1 sets per week and is on an undulating periodization style where even their overloading frequency is different. That would be a much stronger kind of elite or international elite, larger lifter. And so, depending on where you're at, these end of week check-ins in connection with the daily fatigue reporting are going to moderate how your sets are adjusted when you move from week 2 of this sheet to week 3 of this sheet and so on. And so it's very important to fill all of these question marks out as well as use the fatigue day to day, because that's going to, 1, allow the system to adjust the day that you're doing. 2, it's going to adjust how your system progresses through week to week. And then on top of that, it's going to adjust an entire cycle assessment of, was this the right periodization to use? Were we supposed to be anticipating a 2 to 3 set increase per week in hypertrophy for you, or was it better to do 1 to 2 sets of increase week to week in hypertrophy? And those sorts of decisions. Again, all of that's going to be dialed in. The longer you use the program, the more it learns about you, the more that it's going to be able to create programming that fits what your specific needs are and fits your needs as those change. Just think if you're in college right now, think about how your fatigue and how the week is going to go when you're in finals week. And depending on what your major is or how much sleep you're getting, or if you get the flu, or, fill in the blank. not every week and not every training cycle is going to be created equal. And that's why, as you consistently use this, the system is going to alter plans. There is no one monolithic plan that can be dictated by a questionnaire that's just going to know immediately every life event and be able to alter training accordingly. So that's why it's very important. Again, I cannot harp on this enough to report to the system your fatigue and your end of week recordings. That's the most valuable piece of this product to you, so don't skip that part. Additionally, it's also going to adjust things day to day. Let's say for pause squat here, for this double at 6 through 7, this lifter is a very strong lifter, can squat in the 700s for this test case. But let's say they used 405 for this, and the actual RPE of this was RPE 6. You'll notice that their back off work here is listed at 375. And so if we take that squat and we increase the fatigue, you'll notice that the drop set is actually greater now. And so again, they're using 84% of what they were using here. And so you can see that the fatigue that they use per day is actually altering what they're doing. And you'll note that when a 5 came in there, it actually lowered the number of sets. Conversely, if they had entered a 1, there's going to be an adjustment of the training program per day. And basically what this is that when things are feeling good, you're going to push and lean into that and get a little bit more work in. Whereas when things are feeling off and really bad, the system's going to give you less work. This is because there's a range of acceptable training, and you don't have to stick rigidly to a single solitary plan, because life happens, and good days happen, and bad days happen. And it's important to be flexible within restrictions, within a framework, as you're going through your training. And so that's how the training will be adjusted by the fatigue. In the next video, I'm going to talk about exercise swapping, and also how exercise swapping and exercises with known maxes change the way the training is presented.